Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. If you don't have space or time for a large garden, go small with 5-gallon buckets. Today we're going to show you how. Also, herbs are great in the kitchen and in the garden. We'll be talking about a few that are easy to grow. That's just ahead on the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plots. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Walter Battle. Walter is the UT County Director in Haywood County, and Ms. Reni Erskine will be joining us later. Hi, Walter. I see we have a bucket on the table. What are we going to do today?
Well, you know, there are a lot of people who simply do not have the space to garden.
Okay, sure.
And, you know, me being a person that like to kind of watch my money a little bit, I was walking through a garden center one day and I saw where you could have these, tomatoes already in a pot, and they were getting like $17 for those things.
Wow.
You know? So I said, well, wait a minute, if somebody like me who got a bunch of old buckets sitting around the house or whatever, you just plant my own. Right? So basically, what I did, I got my bucket. Okay. Now you want to make sure, I really like to see you get a new bucket though. Okay. Because, you know, if you're using something that used to be, have like petroleum products in it or some kind of chemical or something, they might have some kind of residue in there that, may work against you. Okay. So, but basically what, what I did, I go and I get my drill and I drill some holes, and these right here are 1-inch holes, but you can use 1/2-inch holes, just whatever, as long as water can drain out of it.
Okay, so that's why you put the hose in the bottom.
Yes, yes. And I always follow that little step up, Chris, by putting me some landscape fabric, just,
How about that?
Off in that, just to cover that up a little bit, so that, we won't have a problem. And then I even add a few rocks in there. And let me see, I won't make too much noise here, but I put some of that in there just to hold that down and make sure everything is fine. You see what I'm saying?
And it'll probably help with drainage as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to help with the drainage. And then I begin to mix my soil.
That looks good.
Yes, what I did, I purchased some already made organic soil, but I did add a little calcium to it. Okay. I did put some lime in this. Okay. And all I simply do is just pour some of that in there. Let me get it started before I dump it. But I add something else to this organic. I also add a little bit of cow manure. And when you live near a cattle farm like I do,
it's readily available.
So I mix that in there too. And then, of course, I'm gonna finish the rest of this out. Now you don't ever just fill it all the way to the top. Okay. You get it right there, and like I said, I added calcium to this. I put about a cup of calcium in here, and then of course I'm going to let me get just a tad more to get my right.
So while you're doing that, 5-gallon, that's a pretty good size.
Yeah, 5 gallons is pretty good size because tomato plants, and look here, I want to talk a little bit about that. Sure. Tomato plants, they're going to put down quite a good long root off in there. All right. Now, when you first get that, notice that these have good white, roots there. And another thing that I do when I plant tomatoes, I like to do what we call sucker them. So I cut off these little bottom ones right here, and let's see. And also these plants here that I got, you can use them. These were over on a rack. Now normally we say don't buy those
on the discount rack.
Yes, but I noticed that they were actually, it's just where they hadn't been watered. Okay. So I saved some money there.
So you can save them. All right.
And then so I tear those little roots apart to kind of.
You tease the roots a little bit.
Yeah, just tease them a little bit, and there we go. And we can set that off in there. Let me get that more in the middle. And then from there,
you just add more
add more around. And let me tell you, you're gonna have some good tomatoes here. This variety here is Early Girl. It's a real nice variety to use, and yes, there you go. This here will do wonders, and I even get all up around there a little more.
Okay. Now this would apply for more than just tomatoes, right? I mean, there's other vegetables you can put in there as well?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can put like 1 tomato plant in a bucket, but you can put 2 pepper plants.
Okay.
And you can also put maybe like 1 cucumber plant, squash plant. You can put 1 of those in there. Okay. I'm talking about in its own bucket.
Sure.
And hey, they'll grow fine. Now one of the things about growing them in the bucket also, you can start them out early. Mm-hmm. You know, you can get out there earlier. Another thing is you don't have to worry about weed control because you're pretty much controlling that.
That's
now,
right.
I'm gonna tell you, if a pigweed or something comes in there, you put it in there. Right. It didn't come in there naturally. And another thing that you know, you can move it around if you need to. You know, you can have a little flexibility with that. And it's just all kind of benefits to growing in a bucket. And trust me, it does not cost you $17. Right. Which is always a good thing.
Right. That's a good thing.
But once again, I do want to emphasize, do not use an old petroleum bucket or something like that. That, you know, if you see something like, lubrication fluid or something on the bucket, don't use that. Okay. You know, but really just get your new bucket.
And let's talk again about the different soils you can use. Now, you actually put in manure. Why did you put it in manure?
Well, you know, because I wanted to raise these kind of organically, and that's going to be a good source, you know, for my fertilization and nitrogen and all that you get with the manure and all that. So that's why I use that. Okay. And again, once again, you know, we do have people like to know where their food comes from, how it's grown. What better way than growing in a bucket? That's right. And as a matter of fact, I highly recommend people who live in apartment complexes that have, just those little ledges. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is an ideal way to garden. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just works perfectly.
Right, and I was once in an apartment, so yeah, that does work.
Yes,
I did that as well.
And also, I didn't bring any with me, but I would also put some mulch on top of this, because when you water it, that would help this stay, you know, moist and stuff, as well as hold that moisture in there. Because, you know, here in the Mid-South, once that, June, July heat hit,
it'll dry out pretty quick. So let's talk about watering. How much would you water?
Well, basically, I would keep this. I would try to give it like maybe an inch a week. Is what I would look at, 1.5 inches. But basically, just feel that soil. If it feels moist, nice and moist, you're fine. Now, we do not want to just saturate it with water. Sure. Because then we're going to mess around and get all that old phytophthora, root rot, and all this stuff developed in there, and you're kind of defeating your purpose. Right. So, you just don't want to just saturate it, but, of course, with those holes in there, it shouldn't saturate. But otherwise, just keep it nice and moist about once a week, maybe twice a week. Mm-hmm. Go out there and just add a little water to it, just like you would water any other plant. Sure. Mm-hmm. And you made the point about moving it as well, because I had to do that when I lived in an apartment. Make sure you got enough sun. So that's a good thing about putting them in, containers or 5-gallon buckets. Exactly.
Move it to follow the sun.
Right. Yeah, you can move it around. And also, you can get you one of those little cages, and they'll work also. And that's what I would do with this one. I won't do anything but just put that little cage in there right now, and it'll just grow right up into that little cage, and you'll be fine. Okay. But like I said, this is just to me, it's really a neat way to even get kids to garden. I agree. A lot of times we see now that kids do not know where food comes from or whatever, and this would just really be a nice way to teach some kids how to, garden, where food comes from, and how they can grow things.
Something they could do at home. I agree.
Oh yes, and if you're looking for a good science project, there it is right there. All right.
Well, good stuff, Walter. We appreciate that demo.
Oh, okay. Well, happy to bring it here.
Now we'll see how that does. Huh?
Oh, okay.
We're going to test you out.
Okay. Well, we'll be slicing tomatoes before long.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you.
Hi, Ms. Reni. We're happy to have you here with us today. I know we're going to learn a lot about herbs, but before we get started, you are the president of the Memphis Herb Society, so thank you again for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, great, great. Look, first question, what is an herb?
Well, an herb is a useful plant. So that really expands the definition of herb that perhaps our grandparents knew, right? So you might do something that is fragrant, that might be useful as a pollinator,
okay.
Medicinal, as a food source, industrial, and right now like hemp, that's a medicinal herb, or hops for beer. So all those are considered herbs.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow. Now let's talk about some of the popular herbs that people like to grow now. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. I don't think people should be afraid of herbs.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
They really shouldn't. You try and you try again,
okay.
right?
Right. I agree.
So
I agree.
One of the first things is parsley. And I love parsley. I really do. But as you notice, I brought a flat leaf, Italian flat leaf, which is different from the curly. And the flat leaf is easier to grow than the curly parsley. Personally, I let mine bolt. And my seeds were originally from Italy, from a region of Venice. So it's humid there. It's hot there. And parsley does tend to bolt. It's a semi-annual. So you actually would throw seeds out every year. And when it bolts, I let it go to seed. And then the seeds fall wherever. So I might have parsley in my walkways, in this bed or that bed, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
You're fine with that. Good for you.
Perfectly
Good
happy.
for you.
Yeah. So that would be the first one.
Okay.
There are very few things that really attack. Now the one thing that loves to eat it is the swallowtail caterpillar. But I'm glad for that. You know, I don't mind. My whole yard is pollinator friendly because I have beehives in the back.
Okay.
I have 3 hives. So I like everything to bloom. And I'll let kale go to bloom, bok choy go to bloom. You know, everything goes wild. And then when it comes time for the tomatoes, I'm afraid they have to go. And I do the same thing with the other herb that's over here, which is dill. Now, a lot of people like dill, and it really is a wonderful herb for fish, or a vinaigrette, or any type of sauce. It doesn't do very well in the Mid-South because it's hot here, and it doesn't rain enough, you know, during the summer months, so it tends to bolt, but that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, so you put out the seed again in the fall for a fall harvest, or in this early spring. So when you see a pot like this at the nursery, it's probably not going to do much for you in May and June. The season is over. But still, it's fun to grow and watch bolt.
Okay.
And again, when mine bolts, the seeds go everywhere. And I have them growing right now, every size, small to tall, and it's growing in between the cracks of the concrete everywhere because it's acclimated to my little microclimate.
Gotcha.
Which is nice. Same thing for the parsley. So I save the parsley seed and I share it. Okay. Same with the dill. I save and I share it. Wow. So those are some fun things. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Let it bolt. Let it go, right?
It is.
Let it go. All right. What else do you have for us?
Yeah. The other easy thing to grow.
Easy, okay.
Yeah, easy. Well, these are easy.
Yeah, easy.
I think they're easy.
I think so.
Are chives. So these are normal chives, and they give that lovely light onion taste. Now, when we talk about diseases and things, we don't have a monoculture in our herb garden. Everything's interspersed with vegetables and other herbs. So it's not like you have 1 acre of parsley that you're cutting for the market. You know, you don't have that issue. Now, sometimes you may have onion maggots that get in there. Maybe sometimes slugs for the parsley, slugs for the dill. You can go ahead and, if it's maggots, you get rid of it. You know, just take it out, replant. Do something new, new spot. And we have one more. This is the favorite.
Everybody, right?
That's basil, and this is sweet basil.
Okay.
And this is new for me in my life. I didn't have that as a child in our gardens. So coming to Memphis and getting acquainted with basil was awesome.
Because everybody grows it here.
Yeah. And so there are so many different kinds that are just a delight to the palate. Now, all of these things do well as companion plants.
Ah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. So we were working the plant sale at the Memphis Botanic Garden, and so when people went out with a tomato, well, where was their basil? It has to go in between because it's fragrant and it sort of captures all sorts of flying insects. And with all these different type of herbs around, you're discouraging insect infestation because there's so many smells for these insects to go to. They kind of wonder, where's the tomato, right? And those should be, tomato hornworms should be handpicked anyway.
That's right. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So another type of chive is this, and I only have a little tiny sample, and that's a garlic chive. Now, if you plant this, you have a good chance that it'll take over. So that means easy.
I have planted those.
Yes?
It has taken over.
Do you like it?
I like it.
I do too. I like especially the flowers because they're so tasty in a salad. Very white, delicate, lovely flowers. Same thing with the regular chive. That makes a beautiful purple flower or pink flower, and you can pick that apart to put in your salads. I mean, it's just a culinary delight to add such things.
Okay. Which one of these would grow best in the window?
Oh my, basil.
Basil. Okay.
Basil is very thankful, yes.
Okay. It's very thankful, I like that. So it grows well in the window.
Yes, and most of these herbs prefer good soil, good watering, but they do not like to stand in water.
Right, so good drainage.
Good drainage, yes. And the ones that do not do well with that are rosemary.
Okay.
It likes a rocky soil.
Okay.
And extra good drainage.
Extra?
Yeah. So I put pea gravel in with my soil when I have sage or lavender.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background with herbs?
Well, sure. I was born in Austria and spent many years there as a child in a small village, a farming village. And so every householder in that village, the ladies would have a kitchen garden that would have in it parsley, dill, also chives, and lovage. And they used these things to season their food because there wasn't really a lot of money for cinnamon, cloves, or curry was unknown. So those types of things were saved for Christmases, Easter, special events.
Yeah, special. Oh,
yeah. So that gave me a great respect for herbs. And then I also had 3 ladies in my family, 2 aunts and a grandmother who had restaurants. And so they would be very aware of what was useful. If they were making spinach and they were a bit short, they would send out a helper to go cut nettles, and that was added in. And that's a very, very healthful herb to add to spinach. Or perhaps if they were making a potato salad, they would cut dandelion greens, and that would be chopped very, very fine into the potato salad. So everything was useful and made life actually very interesting.
Wow.
You know?
Thank you much for sharing a little bit of your history as well.
That.
So we definitely do appreciate that. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So what we have here is a pin oak tree. As you can see here, it's actually trying to resprout. So we have what we call here suckers, okay, or shoots, okay? So we want to definitely remove these because we don't want those to be there because they're not doing anything for the tree itself. So I'm going to start by cutting this off, cutting it as close to the trunk of the tree as I possibly can. Okay, there you go. Make sure you're using sharp pruners when you're doing this. And I might have to come back and make sure I cut this one off as close to the trunk as I possibly can. Now, as I look at the overall health of the tree, I have some concerns. Of course, there's lichen growing on the tree, which is not necessarily a bad thing per se, but this may be a possible canker here. Look at that, and there's some flux or some ooze actually coming from this wound here. So again, I think that may be a canker, and I'm surprised that this tree, which is a pin oak, doesn't have bacterial leaf scorch, which is why we're telling folks not to plant these pin oaks anymore in this area. All right, here's our Q&A segment. You jump in there with us, Ms. Reni, all right?
All right.
Here's our first viewer email. What are the cultural practices to get rid of moss? And this is from one, YouTube. So he wants to get rid of moss culturally.
Yes.
Culturally.
Well, I know that. It would basically show up in very acidic soils.
Okay.
So one suggestion I would have to him is obviously to add lime to raise the pH. The other practices I'm not really familiar with, but I just know that's why you have it.
Okay. Let me help you out with the other ones. One, if you have poorly drained soils, okay, compact soils, acidic soils you already covered, and a little shade.
Okay.
So if you have all of those, then yeah, you're gonna have the perfect ingredients for moss.
And I like moss.
And most people like moss.
And
there are a lot of moss lawns now.
Yes. In
absolutely.
Japan, some beautiful gardens. In California, some beautiful gardens with moss where they work years and years to establish moss.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely have those here. Keep the leaves off of them.
Yes.
Okay. And they will be just fine. But of course, he wants to get rid of it culturally. So you have to improve your drainage, aerate your soil, get your soil tested.
Yes.
All right. And maybe limb up a couple of trees, to get some sunlight down. That's the way to get rid of it culturally.
Yes.
Culturally. But again, like Ms. Reni said, it's beautiful.
I think so.
I've seen it. I actually have a patch of it in my own yard.
Yes.
Looks fine to me. But I know why I have it culturally.
Yes.
All right. So there you have it, Juan. Thanks for your question. Here's our next viewer email. We want to aerate our yard, then put down lime and organic fertilizer. Well, these things help for weed control. We really don't want to spray anything poison to kill our weeds, so we have a lot of weeds in our yard. Or what do you think? And this is from Bethany.
Well, I mean, one of the keys to, having a good lawn is to have a lawn that's growing very good to outcompete
the weeds.
Right. And also, mow your grass a little high so that the crabgrass won't germinate, because crabgrass likes light to germinate.
Sure.
So those are some cultural practices that they can use to help with at least crabgrass and maybe suppress some of the weeds. But otherwise, you pretty much have to kind of go out there and hand pull them if you see some weeds in different spots. If you're trying not to use any kind of chemicals or whatever.
Yeah, so Ms. Bethany, here's the deal. The things that she's talking about are the things you should do culturally anyway.
Right.
Right. So aerating your yard, yes. Okay, because you want to open the soil up. You want to get air down to the roots. You want to get water to the roots and those nutrients, okay? Putting down lime, of course, helps, according to your soil test, right? And she said organic fertilizers. All of those are good cultural practices, right? Yes. Because at the end of the day, if you want the grass to outcompete the weeds, you need a good dense stand of grass. So these are your methods to do that.
Yes.
Right? But we did find out earlier, you can just eat some of those weeds, can't you?
You can.
Yes.
You can.
Right.
Yes.
But yeah, and they don't want to spray anything, which is fine.
Yes.
That's okay. Yeah. If you don't want to use any chemicals, I mean, that's fine. Because we talked about that earlier as well. But there you have it, Ms. Bethany. Yeah, what you're asking is your answer. Okay. So just do those things culturally and you should be fine. All right, here's our next viewer email. Can I recycle expired milk or juice into my garden? And this is from Highkick, YouTube. Interesting question. Recycle expired milk or juice in the garden, Walt. What do you think?
Well, I know the milk will be fine.
Milk is fine.
Calcium.
Yes, calcium.
But the juice, I don't know.
I wouldn't go, again, going back to the milk, it's calcium. You just cut it a little bit with water.
If it's acidic, maybe not. But if it's sugary, because we do put
That's
molasses,
what the juice, right?
we do put molasses
Right,
on
right.
as a fertilizer and to increase the microbes in the soil.
Sure do.
So that might work.
Should do. Most of your juices, especially your citric juices, are very acidic though.
So that would be a
very
no.
acidic. So I wouldn't want to use those
Maybe
juices.
apple or
Maybe.
something like that.
Maybe.
Like I said, I'll be a little skeptical.
Yeah, expired milk, yes. Some of your juices, I don't know. The acidity would concern me.
Yes.
a lot of sugar. They're very sweet, of course. It will attract insect pests or insects. Wasp.
Yes.
Anything that likes, these pests that like the little sugar can
And
attract
it
some
may
of
also
those.
attract some rodents too.
It may attract
with
some
these
rodents.
food type ingredients.
Right. Because we
Well,
actually
think about
tell folks not to put a lot of your juices in compost piles for that reason.
Interesting.
Right.
Ants,
Right.
rodents. So I'll be a little careful, with the juice. Molasses? Yeah, you're right. That's a good point that you brought up for the microbes. So there you have it, High Kick. All right. Hope that answers your question. So, Ms. Reni, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you for letting me
Thank
speak.
you.
All right.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com.
That's all we have time for today. To get more information on things we talked about on today's show, go to familyplotgarden.com. There we have links to extension publications with every video. You can also check out the full garden calendar. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.